is the Fox 5 RebZone Sports Show, sponsored by R.C. Willey and Levitt Law Firm.
Good evening and welcome inside the Red Zone, coming to you from inside the UNLV basketball offices. Kevin Bollinger alongside Runnin' Rebels head coach TJ Otzelberger after a 15-point Runnin' Rebel win over Eastern Michigan on Saturday. And Coach, a great way to build a little bit of momentum as we move towards the Mountain West schedule.
Yeah, I thought our guys did a great job focusing on the game plan, very intentional defensively, really guarded the basketball for the majority of the game, and that allowed us to get going with some pace and transition, create some separation, and bring home a good win going into league play.
Well, let's show everybody what happened in this one. A little bit of a slow start for UNLV, but then they started clicking.
For the second game in a row, TJ Otzelberger leaves his regular starters on the bench and begins with guys who haven't seen as many minutes. Eastern Michigan made sure to make the ball handlers sweat, and it paid off early. The backcourt pressure, and Darren Spotsville steals it from Marvin Coleman and gets the lay-in. Then Yikesen Montero drops a corner three as the Eagles jumped out to an early lead. That's because the Rebels opened ice cold and didn't score their first point until the 14:39 mark on these two free throws. The first field goal came on this inside bucket from Mbake Jong, and it sparked a 13-0 UNLV run. Jonah Antonio hit a triple. Donnie Tillman with the offensive rebound and putback. The quick trigger three from Antonio, and Bryce Hamilton with the drive and floater in the lane. EMU tried to stay in it. Noah Morgan hit a three to cut it to one, but the Runnin' Rebels kept them at bay the rest of the half. The good ball movement to Jong, and he throws it down. Then Tillman, the sweep pass to Hamilton for the dunk, and the steal by Amari Hardy. He takes it the other way and scores on the other end. The Rebs hold Eastern Michigan to only 10 points in the final 16 minutes 15 seconds of the first half and led 28-20 at the break. UNLV dominated the second half. Jong with another dunk. Marvin Coleman got a trifecta. And watch this play. The steal by Jong over to Hardy. And the big man running the floor. And he gets rewarded on the other end by Hardy and gets the lay-in as the lead opened to double digits. They kept it going. Jong gets the loose ball for the bucket and the bump. Hardy drives for the lay-in. Then Amari feeds Tillman for two. Hamilton hard to the rim. He gets the hoop and the harm. And the capper by Jong, who puts down the dunk. Jong had 15, Hamilton put in 13, and Tillman contributed 12. UNLV made up for a tough shooting game with defense, forcing 19 turnovers and getting 12 steals as they pull away and beat Eastern Michigan 64-49.
We work on defense for 2 hours of our 3-hour practices, so that really helps out for us, and we just take pride in our defense, and that's just a good thing for us now.
You got to do a better job of just keep playing hard, coming through a conference, because now all the games count now.
Before we get into the game itself, starting lineup-wise, same thing as we saw last Saturday with a lot of the regular starters on the bench. Did you not see in practice what you wanted to see from them, or was that kind of just one more reinforcement for those guys?
Well, I think there's a couple things going. One is we played with a lot of energy and got the victory against Robert Morris, so certainly wanted to continue to build on that momentum. I think on the practice court every day, everybody has an opportunity to earn more minutes, and so it's good to keep guys hungry for those opportunities. And then I think the last part is some of our guys had played some heavy minutes, so now having some guys get some additional minutes doesn't put as much heavy lifting on their plate either.
And a lot of coaches will say the best cure for a struggling offense is a good defense, and it started with a lot of deflections by UNLV that was able to get you guys kind of moving a little bit.
Yeah, 34 deflections today was our season high, which was really impactful. It allowed us to turn them over a fair amount, get going in transition. Thought we did a good job for the most part defensively on the glass too, and when we were going in transition, we can be pretty good.
You had 21 turnovers as a team, but I think the key stat on the flip side of that is you only give up 12 points off of those 21 turnovers. So transition defense was there for you guys as well.
Yeah, I think some of them weren't live ball turnovers, but the ones that were, I thought our guys, we had preached ball toughness, how important it was going to be to value the basketball. So I think they understood that when we were in a spot that whether they did get a deflection or a turnover, that we needed to really sprint back and get our defense anchored and be ready to defend.
As we get moving, and we'll talk a little bit more about Utah State, who's one of the opponents next week, but pace of play has been a hot topic on social media because the numbers from Ken Palm showed UNLV with such a slow pace of play. Eastern Michigan doesn't have a high pace of play, but certainly when we get into some of these Mountain West teams, things are going to pick up a little bit.
Well, I think for us, you want to play the best pace that fits your team to be successful. I've been fortunate. The last 2 programs I've worked at have been in the top pace of play in the entire country. Those teams had a lot of skilled players that could really shoot and move the basketball. I think right now we're settling in on our identity being a team that needs to really be intentional defensively. I'd be a little fearful. We had 21 turnovers in a slow pace of play, what that might be if we force the tempo more. So we're going to really focus on guarding the basketball, finishing plays on the glass, and getting out in transition that way.
As we go forward here, as we've wrapped up non-conference play now, everything else is going to be within the Mountain West the rest of the way. How would you assess where this team is right now at the end of December compared with your expectations, not the fans' expectations, of where you thought this team should be at this point?
I think we started off the season with our scrimmage, our exhibition, and early, I thought our guys had great energy, great buy-in, tremendous focus, and got off to a good start. We weren't fortunate enough to come out with some of those victories against a game like Kansas State or Cal and start to add up some overtime losses. And I think you can't help, guys can't help but have that impact and affect them and their psyche and their mentality. So I think that showed it as well. Now we've kind of rebuilt some momentum, some energy. Again, I don't judge our program based on wins and losses, especially in the short term. I know that that's coming. I think more than anything, it's continuing to improve. I feel good that the last week or 10 days we've taken a step forward. Now we've got to keep growing as a group. Going into league play 1-0 with a really good team coming in here this week.
Well, it is Mountain West play time. Up next in the RebZone, we're going to take a look at 2 games next week, Utah State and Air Force. That's all coming up on the backside of the break as the RebZone rolls on.
You're watching the Fox 5 RebZone Sports Show, sponsored by R.C. Willey and Levitt Law Firm.
Mountain West play resumes on Wednesday night, New Year's night, as UNLV takes on Utah State, followed up by a home game against Air Force.
New Year's Day, the Mountain West schedule resumes as UNLV hosts preseason favorite Utah State. The Aggies laid claim to the conference last season by winning it all and going to the NCAA tournament. They have all their key players returning, but this year, Utah State is the hunted instead of the hunter, a position they're okay with.
It's exciting to have some recognition and some respect, to be honest, towards our program. But we felt that for most of the conference season. Once we got off to that good start, we felt that pressure. We felt like we got to the point where we felt like every game was a must-win for our NCAA tournament hopes. So we know obviously the target's on our back this year.
Sam Merrill is as good of a shooter as it gets, and if he gets hot, it's all over. But Utah State has balance inside and out and on both ends of the floor. Second-year head coach Craig Smith is also very familiar with TJ Otzelberger. His South Dakota teams played Otzelberger's South Dakota State teams at least twice a year and were only 90 minutes apart.
There's certainly a level of familiarity, but obviously he's a smart coach and he's going to adjust his style to some extent to their players, and try to put them in positions to really thrive and have success. And we try to do the same thing. And so certainly have some core fundamentals, and your culture is the same at its core of what you want it to be, but certainly I think both of us are very willing to be flexible and adapt to the personnel that we have.
On Saturday, Air Force comes into the Thomas & Mack for the only regular season meeting between the two teams. Falcons head coach Dave Pilipovich says the fact that they're seeing an Otzelberger team for the first time puts a lot of emphasis on film breakdown during the week.
They're new. They're new, and how they're playing, style of play. You'll go back and watch maybe some of TJ's games, South Dakota State, and see the effort of play, style of play, and then match it up with their personnel and then get them. But But it is obviously with new coaches and new players, it is challenging, especially before the first time.
Air Force has always given UNLV fits. It takes a lot of discipline to have success against the Falcons, but they don't run as many backdoor cuts as they used to.
Teams have done a better job of figuring it out. Yes, totally that way. We still run them. Get more non-conference play where teams aren't as experienced playing against us, but then once conference play, and especially the coaches who've been in the league for numerous years have taken some things away.
Since UNLV's coaching staff and some key players are new, don't be surprised to see the backdoor cuts make a reappearance in this game to give the Rebels fits. Air Force will also have fan support. With Nellis in town and a lot of retired Air Force living here in Southern Nevada, this is always a special place for the Academy to play. The players recognize that they get respect in Las Vegas, whether the fans are for them or UNLV.
It's a warm welcome. Like you said, Nellis is here. A lot of retired Air Force is here. We definitely feel the fans that they respect us. They know what we're doing is hard and not easy. Being a student athlete at the Air Force Academy. So we appreciate it so much. It means the world to us. So, we're very thankful for that.
2 big games against tough opponents right out of the gate. The conference grind has begun.
All right, Utah State, Wednesday night, preseason favorites to win the conference. A lot of weapons on this team, both inside and out.
Yeah, no, they're a great team overall. I mean, they play extremely hard. You know, they're returning as the champion of the league and the projected champion again. They've got tremendous ball movement. Obviously, Merrill's been a phenomenal scorer and stepped up and put up big numbers. Kate has been a guy who's anchored the rim, but I think it's all the other guys, their ball movement, their toughness, the pace that they play at that makes them really effective. So we're going to need to do a great job come Wednesday.
Sam Merrill is one of those players that he's going to get his points no matter what. Do you try and just kind of keep him to within an average night to make sure he doesn't have a big night and try and get other guys to beat you? Or is it one of those things where you're just going to have to be good on the perimeter and chase guys down and not give them clean looks?
You know, I think it's going to be some of both, depending on the time of the game and what the situation dictates. I've watched them play some games throughout the course of the year, but haven't really dove into studying exactly how we're going to attack them or defend them. I think at the same time, with teams that move the ball really well and have a lot of weapons, you focus too much on one guy and then everybody else can kind of beat you. So we're going to have to pick our spots and probably mix some defenses too to keep them off balance.
As we talked about in the story previewing this game, you're very familiar with Utah State's head coach. You guys go way back to the South Dakota versus South Dakota State days. Any tendencies that you think that you're going to see with Utah State of stuff that you know that he did when you guys coached against each other?
Yeah, Craig and I had some great rivalries. I think there's certainly a mutual respect there. We were fortunate to have a lot of close wins against them, and the last 2 that propelled us to the NCAA tournament. And so, but there's definitely a respect. I know with his teams, they're always going to be hard-nosed defensively. They do a great job getting out, running in transition off steals, any turnover, deflection, long rebound. They really push it at you in the paint. But it's that hard-nosed man-to-man defense. It's the ball movement, all those things that have been characteristics of his team over time.
Saturday, Air Force comes to town, and one of the toughest teams for anybody to prepare for in the Mountain West because they have such an interesting offense the way they run. Dave Pilipovich doesn't do as many backdoor cuts as he has done in years past because teams have figured out ways to defend them, but UNLV hasn't seen them as much. Are you worried that the backdoor cuts make a reappearance here in this conference game?
You know, I think for them with their offensive schemes, they're a very intelligent team. They try to put you in some tough spacing spots, and if you overplay them or pressure them, they're always going to back cut you and move the ball. So they're definitely a unique scout. Their skill level makes them unique. A lot of times they'll play undersized frontline guys who can really pass, so it's a different look than you're used to getting. But I think, again, coming in on our court, we need to be the aggressive team. We need to have the mentality we need to have. And I know that if we can do that, we have a chance to have a lot of success.
All right, Coach, we're going to take another short break right now. When we come back, I go one-on-one with Mountain West Commissioner Craig Thompson.
You're watching the Fox 5 RebZone Sports Show, sponsored by R.C. Willey and Levitt Law Firm.
Welcome back inside the Red Zone. We're joined now by Mountain West Commissioner Craig Thompson to talk about the happenings inside the conference right now. Let's start with the TV deal. It is kind of the most important thing that's starting up the negotiations. Where's the conference at, and how are they going to make sure that they get not only a good nationwide profile, but also good start times?
That's probably going to be mutually exclusive. Unfortunately, you know, our value is the later we play. We had a great conversation with our athletic directors last week in Colorado Springs, and we're talking about trying to, anything that starts with a 7 versus an 8 is an improvement. And so we're very cognizant of that, but that 8:30 window, you know, there's a couple conferences that are playing in that hour, ourselves in the Pac-12, and so it's going to be a mainstay if that's the route we choose to take. And so trying to balance out that national exposure, but also get the revenue we're optimistic to receive is going to necessitate some 8 o'clock kickoffs and tip-offs.
We've talked over the years about scheduling, especially with basketball programs, and making sure that they get tough enough teams on their schedule that's going to help the conference RPI to help them come tournament selection time. Do you feel that most of the universities and programs have done that in basketball?
Trying. It's getting harder and harder, certainly with the Pac-12 going to 20 games. Several other conferences play 20 games. There's just fewer opportunities to play those quality opponents, and certainly at home. A really important term for us is the MTE, the multi-team event. You get to play neutral court games against some very quality competition around Thanksgiving and Christmas, and you know, those are really important schedules for us. It's going to be something that's not going to get any easier, and probably going to necessitate us looking at the number of conference games we play in the future.
In terms of maybe extending out and going more conference games?
Yes, because we had some schools, we had 2 institutions on October 2nd that still had not completed this year's schedule yet.
Wow, okay, that's going to be something to keep an eye on as we move forward. California has passed legislation recently in terms of the image licensing. There are 3 Mountain West schools inside the state of California. How is that impacting this conference moving forward and ahead in the future?
Well, as it stands, by following California law, which they would be required to do, they're in direct conflict with the NCAA regulations, and you know, there's been some browbeating going on. Florida has 2 bills on the Senate floor. They have not been passed yet, and as many as 10 or 12 other states have talked about legislation. The challenge is if it starts unraveling and we have 50 different state laws to contend with, it's going to be chaos. So we need to get the NCAA moving in some direction. We need to get the compromise from some of these state bills and state laws, California, to get back to a situation where we can all live together and make a workable solution. If, you know, it starts, it's a very simple equation. Are you in favor of student athletes receiving compensation, remuneration for their name, image, and likeness? And if your answer is yes, then it gets challenging.
It's such a polarizing issue within the NCAA and states and everything else. Can you see them getting a common ground quickly before this gets out of control, because things haven't moved quickly with other issues in the past?
They haven't. This one is going to have to be a fast track because, as you mentioned, California goes into effect in 2023. The 2 Florida bills on the floor would take effect in July. There's not a lot of time potentially, or you're going to put institutions in direct conflict with their state law versus NCAA regulations.
Wrapping up here, the Mountain West decided to re-up with Thomas and Mack for the conference tournament. There's a lot of venues and more going up in this city to do that. Why was it important, A, to stay in Las Vegas, but B, to come back to the Thomas and Mack?
Well, this is, I've said for 21 years, it's a great destination for our fans. They love coming to Las Vegas. They put vacations and spring breaks around the basketball championship, so staying in Las Vegas was really important. As far as Thomas and Mack versus other facilities, you know, it's where we play, you know, home games. It's a member institutions facility, UNLV. Obviously, in the past, we've addressed it's a home court advantage for UNLV. You know, you can go back and be the judge of that. In 20 years, in the 17 previous tournaments played in Thomas and Mack, is it a great advantage for UNLV or not? But that's something we could look at in the future of these new facilities you speak, that perhaps moving it. But it served us well, and people are comfortable, and they've done some nice changes to Thomas and Mack, and it's a facility people are comfortable in.
Commissioner, thank you very much.
Thank
Good
you.
to talk to you as
All
always.
right.
We're back to wrap up the Red Zone right after this.
You're watching the Fox 5 RebZone Sports Show, sponsored by R.C. Willie and Levitt Law Firm.
We touched on it a little bit, the fact that with finals being over, school's out, you can kind of focus in on basketball. This is a great time for that to happen with the Mountain West season getting going in full bore.
Yeah, I think it's been great for our guys. It gives us some extra time to do some work on the floor, work on some skill development, do a little bit more teaching. I think that's paid off for us as well, and it gives our guys a mental break where they can focus some of that mental energy that they were allocating to their academics now to the basketball. So it's been really productive for our team.
Well, Coach, good luck this week. 8 o'clock tip-off on Wednesday night here at the Thomas and Mack for Utah State. We hope to see you out there. Hope to see you next Sunday in the Reb Zone as well. Thanks for joining us for this one. We leave you tonight with the Runnin' Rebel Plays of the Week. Good night.
The RebZone Sports Show, sponsored by R.C. Willie and Levitt Law Firm.